Welcome to our daily Bible devotions. We are now on our day 3 of going through the cosmological argument. And yesterday it was remarkable that we discussed the 5 proofs for God's existence, 5 ways of how Aquinas proved the existence of God. We pointed out that 3 of these arguments are actually cosmological arguments. And I mentioned yesterday about how the law of inertia provides support or proof for this because we mentioned that the law of inertia says that a body at rest will remain at rest unless acted upon by an external force. And since we see that the universe is in motion, that we have a mechanical universe, then therefore, someone must have started all the motion in the universe. Therefore, as Aquinas pointed out, it leads us to believe that logically there is a first mover, a prime mover. Now, an argument against this is the existence of quote unquote infinity or eternality. Basically saying that the universe is infinite, the universe is eternal. If you've seen the TV series Stranger Things, they have quoted Carl Sagan, who said that the universe is and was and all that ever will be. Basically, some scientists are proposing that the universe has been there the whole time. It has been in motion the whole time. It's eternal. It's infinite. Therefore, there is no need for a prime mover. It's like imagine a domino. There was no finger that started the first motion because it has been in motion the whole time. Now, that notion of infinity also has its support from the law of inertia because the law of inertia says that uh, a body in motion will remain in motion unless acted upon by external force. And they're saying that the universe is in motion because it has always been in motion. So, two opposing sides, they both have proof, and Thomas Aquinas would only be correct if Aristotle is correct that the initial state of things is to be at rest. But there is some merit in what some scientists and philosophers are proposing, that the universe has been infinite or eternal. So how do we solve this? How do we, because both of them cannot be true. Only one, we said that truth is exclusive, so only one of them can be true. Now, let's look at this from the perspective of Albert Einstein. Now, Albert Einstein is probably one of the most famous scientists in the world. And he said that science without religion is lame, and religion without science is blind. So let me tell you a story about Albert Einstein. In 1916, Albert Einstein didn't like where his calculations were leading him. He has this theory of general relativity. And if it was true, it meant that the universe was not eternal and that the universe had a beginning. Take note, he proposed this theory of general relativity, and yet he believed in the infinity or eternality of the universe. And yet his calculations about the general relativity disproves that notion that the universe is infinite. So this relativity says that the universe had a beginning. So Einstein's calculations indeed were revealing a definite beginning to all time, all matter, and all space. So this flew in the face of his belief that the universe was static and eternal. That's why it's called irritating facts, because for Einstein, this discovery is irritating for him. He wanted the universe to be self-existent. That's what he believes. So he doesn't want the universe to be reliant on any outside cause. He believes that the universe has to be self-existent. But the universe, according to his calculations, has to be one giant effect. And if it's an effect, therefore there's a cause, an outside cause. So in fact, Einstein so disliked the implications of general relativity, a theory that is now proven accurate to 5 decimal places, that he introduced a cosmological constant, which some have since called a fudge factor. And he introduced this into his equations in order to show that the universe is static and to avoid an absolute beginning. But ever since then, actually, there have been many objections to this fudge factor by Albert Einstein. And there's this Dutch astronomer William de Sitter, he found that general relativity required the universe to be expanding. Guess what? In 1927, the expanding of the universe was actually observed by astronomer Edwin Hubble. Yes, the namesake of the Hubble telescope. So, looking through the 100-inch telescope at California's Mount Wilson Observatory, Hubble discovered a redshift in the light from every observable galaxy, which meant that those galaxies were moving away from us. Now, if you have time, I suggest you read more about that. It's interesting to actually see evidence of how the universe is expanding. In other words, general relativity was again confirmed by Hubble. So the universe appears to be expanding from a single point in the distant past. So in 1929, Einstein himself made a pilgrimage to Mount Wilson to look through Hubble's telescope for himself. What he saw was irrefutable. The observational evidence showed that the universe was indeed expanding as general relativity had predicted. With his cosmological constant now completely crushed by the weight of the evidence against it, Einstein could no longer support his wish for an eternal universe. He subsequently described the cosmological constant as the greatest blunder of his life. And he redirected his efforts to find, the origin of everything. Einstein said that he wanted to know how God created the world. He said that he's not interested in this or that phenomenon, in the spectrum of this or that element. He just wants to know God's thought. For him, the rest would be details. So this comment from Albert Einstein actually admits creation and divine thought. This describes atheistic God. This describes the definition for the God that we have clarified last week. And as irritating as it may be for his general theory of relativity, Einstein's theory of general relativity stands today as one of the strongest lines of evidence for atheistic God. Can you imagine that? General relativity supports what is one of the oldest formal arguments for the existence of a theistic God. What argument is that? Well, the argument of from the cosmological argument. So I want to introduce another sort of irritating fact for many philosophers. There's this Muslim philosopher and also a mathematician. His name is al-Ghazali. So he's a teacher, Muslim teacher, so he's called Imam. Imam al-Ghazali, he demonstrated mathematically his objection on the notion of actual infinity. Okay, if you ask your math teacher about this, in mathematics, there's this so-called infinity. And there are actually two infinities, potential infinity and actual infinity. Now, potential infinity stands up until now. But the notion of actual infinity was objected by this Muslim philosopher and mathematician al-Ghazali. He lived during the time of 1200s or 1100s. He's probably a contemporary of Thomas Aquinas. And he proved mathematically that there is no actual infinity. So he's saying that the universe is not infinite. I mean, the numbers, mathematically speaking, the numbers in the universe cannot be infinite. So this is another irritating fact for those who want to believe that the universe is infinite, that the universe has always been there. So al-Ghazali beat the philosophers using mathematics in his book, Incoherence of the Philosophers. That's where he demonstrated his proof for that. So because of al-Ghazali, general relativity can really stand better in its support for a theistic God. If you will look at this, two philosophers, actually two scientists, two thinkers, there is no such thing as an infinite universe. And Albert Einstein is a good example of someone who follows the truth wherever it leads. He doesn't want to believe it, but apparently, according to his discoveries, now it points him to a theistic God. The universe had a beginning. That leads us to our premise 2, which we will discuss